Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board. It is Wednesday, the 23rd. It is now 6:35. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Can I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Sean Poole.
Here.
Member Bob Breedlove.
Here.
Member Phyllis Gray. Let the record show that Phyllis Gray is not present this evening. Member Claudia Smith.
Here.
Member Tom Brown.
Here.
Thank you. All right, little housekeeping. I have minutes from our meeting approximately a year ago. Do you have any discussion or questions regarding those minutes?
You speaking September minutes?
Yes, sir.
I
What
have
date
none.
was that?
September 26th, 2018. Any motions or discussion regarding those minutes?
I make a motion we approve.
Do I have a second?
Got a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Another little bit of housekeeping. The P and Z Board is due for a new chairman for 2019-2020 year. Do I have any motions or discussion regarding that information?
I don't see any reason to make any change. If you're willing to continue, I make a motion that you continue.
I'm more than happy to stay here, if that's what you guys want.
I second the motion.
Okay. All right.
Vote on that, or is there a vote?
Do we have to take it to a vote? Absolutely.
Wait, put to a vote, yeah.
All right.
Just
All-
just for the record.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. All
Welcome,
right.
Chairman.
Thank you. I don't have to move today. Okay, in front of us, we have a request by 2RJ Investments. I will put it to building. Can you describe what's going on with this?
Before you get started, could I
Sure.
just make some opening comments? Before you, as everyone's, Ms. Brown, you've done a quasi judicial hearing before?
Yeah.
You've done a hearing like this, Claudia, have you? Okay, so I'll give the brief introduction. Before you, you have this two-page document with some yellow highlights. Those are the criteria and standards you should be considering. Okay, it's from the code. And then on the second page are conditions which you may impose upon the applicant if you feel they're appropriate. Obviously, you would ask the applicant if they would want to do that. Secondly, in terms of process here tonight, in front of you, you have a package. Okay, this is a quasi judicial hearing, so we try to do it a bit formal. Neither the applicant's documents are in there, as well as staff's documents. Neither the applicant nor staff has to present any documents today. These are already in evidence before you, so if the applicant wants to put any more documents in, he can, but he doesn't need to move those into evidence or anything like that.
Okay.
Okay. The same thing applies to the other side. In terms of process, normally you would go to staff first, see what their position is. Then when they're done, the applicant has a right to cross-examine staff.
Absolutely.
Okay? And then you have a right to ask questions of staff. Then the applicant can come and put his case on. You have a right to ask him questions, okay, going the other way. And if any witnesses want to speak after that, if they come up, they have to know that they can speak for whatever amount of time you want to set, but they also have to be subject to examination by staff, the board, or the applicant. Okay.
Wonderful. Okay. Mr. Dallas.
Yes, okay. So the request is to rezone I believe there was a total of 7 lots, Sunglow and Leo Kid, from residential to commercial use. The area around it is all residential at this time, except for there are commercial. Leo Kid is.
You're going to swear each one in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You've been sworn?
You want to have Sal just do everybody?
You can do them all at once or one at a time.
Why don't we do that? Sal, let's go ahead and just take care of it. Anybody who plans to speak, please stand, and Sal will swear you in.
I do solemnly swear that I'll tell, I will affirm and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing so help you God. Okay, that's it.
Curious about that.
Thanks.
Let's go back to.
Proceed.
It is the rezoning of two parcels, 5867 Sunglow and 8151 Leo Kidd. Currently zoned R2, I believe, to C3 commercial. At this time, the staff, chief of police has denied this. And the memo is in. Utilities has no issue with it. The building department, at the time, we didn't have all the information that was presented. We've had site plans revised, sent in, and everything else, but at that original point, it was denied by myself, pending more information. And there's still some conflicts there with the properties as far as what they want to do with that. The original plan showed the buildings was split 50-50. It's actually more about a 60-40 according to the plot layout. And one building showed laying on both properties. They've since submitted a revised plan showing the buildings has been moved, but they also added a entrance and exit off of Sunglow that wasn't on the original that was submitted. Major issue I think that's gonna be happening here is, and what we've heard from the community is, the commercial traffic along Sunglow. It is happening now, but we don't know if this is gonna, we don't have the use of both buildings is what they're actually gonna use. I believe one building, the one that will be coming off of Leo Kidd, is gonna be relocating, the relocation of Air Prompt from where they currently are at the other end of Sunglow to this location. But the new other building, the use of that hasn't been determined. It's just a proposed structure. And, you know, if this is approved for the rezoning, it would come before everybody else. Also, there's gonna be a requirement that the future land use map has to be revised. So even if this is approved this time, we still have to go through the process of revising the future land use for a second hearing and back to council. At which time there'll be more clarification of what they're gonna be doing on that property will be brought in for review for everybody.
Okay. Is that all?
At this point,
Any questions from the board before I ask?
I do.
Okay.
You said that if this was approved, it would have to have the future land use map changed.
even if you approve the rezoning this evening,
Right.
we still gotta do, the flume still has to be,
Does it go to change the future land use before or after it goes to council?
they can be done
Before.
before.
So I thought this was slated to be heard before council this, early next month,
That's
is it
been
not?
Delayed till we get the flume. We have to do the flume before we can go to council.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
I have a question. The packet that we received, myself and the board received probably about a week and a half ago, page 23 appears to have changed. And that's the drawing showing that the ingress and egress was solely off of
Leo Kidd diversion.
Leo Kidd. Is that who modified that and when did that happen?
That was brought to us yesterday, and it was modified by the client, by the applicant.
Okay, great. We'll have Mr. St. Martin address that in just a second then. Okay, so I'm sure I'm not the first person to have that question. All right, Mr. St. Martin, would you like to approach the podium? Record your name for the record, please.
John St. Martin, president of 2RJ Investments, Inc.
Okay.
So I was the one that modified it, but going back to what Mr. Foss said over there, it was brought to our attention much later in the show that the planned use development, we missed a step somewhere along the way in the city here. You guys have a city planner, and now I have to go through a whole other proceeding, which could have coincided with this, but Chief had in at the last minute, so we will be delayed further. I guess we'll have to have another meeting regarding this future land use in regards to this as well.
Absolutely.
You know where Aircroft is on
Yeah.
Washington Street? So as it is now, I get semi deliveries probably 3 times a week. And they come in from Sunglow and they back in on Sunglow into my property. Been doing that for 20 years at the same location without a single problem. I just want to pump that out when we start going back and forth over a driveway on Sunglow. Property over there is only 140 feet deep. 20 feet of that is probably in the drainage ditch. That I still haven't figured out how it's there because it's not actually showing how that all came about or even came across that property and who got the right of way and how that even came about. I'm still looking into that. But being the depth of that property, coming in and out on Leo Kid with semis and even your own fire trucks is gonna be very difficult to make the turns, the radius and everything else. We are going to have 2 parcels there, so it's only fair to say that you have an entrance and an exit on Sunglow for the second parcel that's deeper in. The other thing I wanna point out is that parcel that's on Leo Kid, if you look up and down the usage map in your very own office over here in Mr. Dallas's office, you will see that every single property on Leo Kid is already commercial, except for the entrance going into the mobile home park at Ridge Road and Leo Kid. Every property up and down the entire road is already commercial, except for the piece that I'm trying to rezone to C3 now. So if you have any doubt, you can look at it yourselves. If you drive over there, you'll see that on the next street up, it's the next street over behind the property.
Dasher.
Dasher Court. That is all metal buildings, similar to what we're trying to do. Whether it's a concrete warehouse or a metal warehouse, it still remains to be seen on cost. But that is the goal, is to put roughly 2 6,000 to 8,000 square foot buildings, 1 on each parcel, with some area to work around and driveways to work around, so that I can have the 11 trucks and room to grow to more. There's currently an air conditioning company on Dasher Court. He has 50 trucks on the road, 50. The majority of the vehicles in and around Leo Kid already use Sunglow, and they have been for the 20 years that I have been on Washington and Sunglow. There's never been an incident or an accident or any kind of pedestrian or any kind of kids that I know of, and you're welcome to look, and there's never been any accidents or anything like that. Every once in a while, our fine police department, they'll come out and they'll sit somebody out there, people start speeding and they write tickets, and we welcome that. We do, we welcome that. We don't want any incidents. My guys, if I catch them speeding, they're gonna have a lot more problems to deal with than the police department would think. You know, and it's not us typically that's speeding up and down roads, it's actually regular residents. You'll see cars just flying up and down. So, as far as my driveway going in and out, I do need semis. If you see them now, it's from Leo Kid, it's very difficult to back a semi in any of those businesses. Most of them come in off the same type of commercial, like come off the side road and they back in. And it wouldn't be any much different if you go over and look at my driveway from the gate, to back in the semi, load some equipment and get it out. Most of them aren't even semis. Only one company I deal with actually are semis. Most of them are just big box trucks. So, I just want you to understand that a driveway in and out of Sunglow is imperative to us. If you look at the depth, it's gonna be very difficult to go in and out on the same road. It's gonna be very difficult to accomplish what we're trying to do. And the value is gonna hurt, it's gonna hurt the overall value of the property if we do it that way.
Okay. I have a question for staff regarding Mr. St. Martin's conversation. This appears to have modified as well. This is the map for the public to understand. This is the map that shows how everything is zoned currently on the Sunglow, as well as how it relates to Leo Kid. Lot 19 has now been penciled in as R2. So that is incorrect. Okay, all right. Because that's owned by utilities, correct? Is it?
Which is directly across the street from the Leo Kid.
Right.
So it's in fact now residential. If you were to pull in the very map you have over there, and you guys were to look at it, you'd be astounded to consider that similar thing on the opposite side from Leo Kid coming down Sunglow, and we'll be only matching what Duke is doing already. They as well, if you look at their road, those Duke Energy trucks go in and out on an entrance from Sunglow currently as we speak. So that's that would not be the only entrance either as well, just so you know.
Any questions for Mr. St. Martin?
No.
I did.
Bob?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You've made a couple of statements I'd like to clarify. You said that Duke currently comes in off of Sunglow?
They have more than one entrance. They have one on Leo Kid that takes them right to their little substation. And if you look at an overhead aerial right on Google Maps, you will see the path that they take. That's the best way to look at it.
Across their C3 lot?
Across their C3 lot.
Okay. You made the statement that 200 feet of Sunglow was already commercial.
That's correct.
Their Duke doesn't have 200 feet there.
I'm talking about my current location.
Oh, okay, okay, I
So
was,
on the west end
I'm
of
on
Sunglow.
on Washington,
Sunglow
right,
now.
I thought you
I
said,
have two parcels that are already commercial. And back 15 years ago, the second parcel went through without any problems at all.
okay, I misunderstood you. I thought you said 300 feet off of Washington and 200 feet off of Leo Kid.
No, the other way.
300 feet off of Leo Kid?
300 off of Washington, and that may be.
300 off of Washington.
Yes.
Where's the 200 off of Leo Kid?
No, he meant Sunglow.
Well, he said on
Sunglow,
Sunglow,
Washington.
there's no 200 feet there.
On the west side he's talking about,
On
right?
the west side.
Okay, okay, I got
And
you.
on both sides of the
Okay.
street as well.
You're on
So
the
you have
corner, on the
appliance
intersection.
place,
Yeah.
and then-
All right, that clarified
And
it.
you do have one house in between a residential and commercial, and then you have the roofing company that's there as well. across
Right.
From one of my rentals. So, currently, as it stands, 2RJ owns over 1.6 acres, 500 feet of Sunglow already. Right? And then about almost 500, 460, somewhere in there. And then I also own 300 feet already on Sunglow at the other end as well. So I have a pretty good position on that street already as far as what I own on two of the properties. So I feel like I should have a little clout on what's being done there as well.
Any other questions, Bob? Clarification?
You said on the site plan that you would require an entrance off of Sunglow for your tractor trailer trucks.
So that's their you're gonna have it, it's fire department's gonna require it. It's not an all-day use. My entrance will be in and out from Leo Kid for my vans and vehicles.
But you said for the semis.
Let's rephrase the semi thing. They're mostly box trucks. I should not have said semis. There is one company that occasionally comes that does have a tractor trailer, but none of them are tractor trailers that currently come to my office.
All right, so you're showing entrance off of Leo Kid, but no cross connect between the two parcels.
Okay, so Dallas came to me and said I was lacking with the parcel, the way it was drawn on there, and the way the properties were. I was off on where the building was. So if you look at the original one, I don't know if that's still in there. It should be.
That one?
Original page 20.
That's the original.
Original page 23,
So,
yeah, we have that.
I was too far over the building on that one. It was actually butting up to the other property. So I quickly drew the other one for the purpose of this meeting, and then left the entrance on there by, really I was gonna draw right through it. But I do wanna make clear that it's important to us to have some kind of entrance, and they could share. So we would not put one for each. We would make it work for both buildings to have,
Okay, that was the crux of my issue, is that you have a building set back at the back, but the only way a semi could effectively serve this would, like as you said, have a double entrance in and out without doing a U-turn.
No, they do it now. I mean, they back right in.
So you can work off of Leo Kid with a
With
single
one
entrance.
With one entrance for both places. So in other words, like he was just saying, one for the emergency for both, and then an entrance off of Leo Kid, but then one for the other building as well, in and out, for the second building, the one that's further in.
Or did you just count up 3 entrances?
No. I'm sorry, can I approach there?
Sure.
All right, so, just so you understand it, this is not where this would be.
Hold on.
Oh, excuse me.
We're creating a record, so.
Okay.
Maybe perhaps
Sure.
Speak, identify
Absolutely.
it for the record.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, there's two parcels now.
Correct.
It used to be 7. So in the county now it's 2, and I would move this, I just didn't do it in time to be more to the center of the 2 parcels.
So he is suggesting that Lot 12 have its own egress off of Sunglow, but more to the east, and then the proposed drawing. Correct? All right.
That's good.
Yeah, so that's correct.
And that would not be an emergency entrance, it would be a regular entrance.
Well, you guys are gonna determine that, but the only reason I brought that up is because, Mr. Voss brought that up to me about the distance between the lot and the buildings and turnaround for the fire department.
The fire department requires a 60-foot turning radius.
I live on a road with a emergency entrance off of a business that fronts 19.
Okay.
It's locked and it's easily accessible should they need it.
Right.
I'm familiar with those type of entrances, but they're not daily used, they're hardly ever used unless there's emergency.
Well, that's gonna be determined, but I'm preferably would want an open and a gated entrance that we could use on a regular basis.
Page 23 indicates that a box truck could drive all the way around both buildings.
Yes, that was the original, like my
But
vans, our vehicles, and that's still.
They can still drive all the way around both buildings.
That is our current, plan, yes.
Okay.
We'd like that to happen. Just keep in mind, we haven't done the engineering or any of that stuff, so we've got drainage, we've got other things that we have to adhere to. So again, this is just a preliminary, right? So, our goal is to get it to C3, not to slide anything over anybody's eyes, but to be very upfront, we do want to put 2 warehouses on those buildings.
Will they
That's what
both
we're
be occupied by the heating and air company?
The one on the Oak Hood would be, and then my partner would, have the other building, and he's already has some properties in the city as well.
What would be its principal use?
Garage right now. So he just needs a storage warehouse is what he's told me, so,
So it's- okay.
Okay, I'm gonna.
A garage for storage or a garage for working on vehicles?
A storage warehouse, Tom.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a lot of questions. I go down that street, Leo Kidd, all the
a
time.
lot of us do.
And what I have seen Duke do is put down these big, huge concrete or metal where they can drive up and down that lot. I have honestly been on that road, I've lived in that area for 10 years, and I have honestly never seen a child playing in the road. Are you gonna retain your current property?
As of right now, yes, we'll be renting it.
Okay, so all of the property in that area on Leo Kidd is C3. You are the only one that is not.
On Leo Kidd.
On Leo Kidd.
Other than the mobile home park, if you guys investigate yourself.
Okay.
As of yesterday when I looked, that is correct. Every
Okay.
single one. And if it's not C3, it's industrial. There's
Industrial, that was
400
the
feet,
other,
it's
yes.
actually industrial.
Yes.
Which is right, almost right across the street.
And the way you changed this, I think I remember last year there was a 3rd building. Okay,
Correct.
so we've done away with the 3rd building.
That is correct. That's good.
We have an interest for your building that you're gonna use on Leo Kidd. We
Yes.
have another building that at this point is going to be a garage warehouse, probably more for storage, but it could change.
Change.
There's a no truck sign on that street though, and what you're telling me is that there are a lot of trucks going up and down
Well,
Sun
because that
Glow?
only pertains, I believe that ordinance only pertains to semis.
You want me to answer that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I don't know of any ordinance that's specific to that street. I really don't know. I'd have to defer to the building department, but I don't know if there's an ordinance in that street for trucks. The council could change it at any time. You can still rezone
Is there
this if
signage
you
you're
want
saying?
to.
It's-
I mean,
there's
that's
a
not gonna
sign.
I can assure you that that's not gonna preclude this application.
Gotcha.
But
I'm
Like I
just
said,
curious as to why it's
since
even there.
Since 2000, I've been there, and,
Yeah.
they're up and down it, and I don't know why it's there either. We don't enforce anything on it, and I don't think we should, because like I said, have you ever seen any incidences or any kind of problems?
No.
And if you don't have it, it's only gonna create more problems. I don't know if you guys have ever been down Pine Hill, but when that school's going in and out, forget it.
Yeah.
You know, they're backing up, that should be dealt with. That's the kind of thing that should be being dealt with.
So you're a longtime resident of Port Ritchie
26 years this February.
and longtime business owner?
Yes.
Okay. That was the other thing that bugged me last time, is that we have a longtime resident and a longtime business owner. Is the person that owns those residential, is he here tonight?
No.
No, you mean the one across the street?
Yes.
You know, in Hillsborough and Pinellas, those two apartments, they may be zoned residential, but as apartments, they're considered, when you apply for permits, they're considered commercial.
He uses them as rental property.
That's the letter he sent.
That's the letter.
Yeah.
And there's no
Mr.
houses
Cash.
that abut to any of that. The only houses there are further, much further down the road.
So he can't be here for city council, nor can he be here for us.
City council, he'll be here,
He will be?
just for us. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. St. Martin?
I did.
Yep.
Since you were here last time, what has changed to cause us to rethink this?
Well, like Ms. Smith just said, you know, there were some concerns brought up about the amount of buildings and things like that, so we went back to the drawing board, we made the properties bigger, and we took the whole building out and just put two in there, one for my partner, one for myself. I need this building. I spent a lot of money on that property thinking that, you know, I did my homework, did some checking around, and I thought it would go through a little easier than it did last time. There were some things that went on at that meeting that I'm not gonna bring up, but I gotta tell you that we waited it out for the year. There's some other avenues we could have took, because there were some things that happened at that meeting that shouldn't have. All right, so, we'll just leave it at that, because of the people that were on the council at the time, things that happened, that were in the building department at the time that were handling it. The only thing that's different is another year's gone by and we've shrunk the amount of that things we're asking for to please you. We've taken away 2 driveways off there, and we're only asking for 1. So we're trying to appease. We're willing to put a sidewalk down there. We're willing to do a fence across the one property side where it abuts to the duplexes that are over there. So we could put a buffer fence in there. A sidewalk down our entire 400, 500 feet, that's fine with us on the easement. That's doable as well. Something Sunglow does not even have. I mean, that's something we could continue to start, and then the city could take off and they'd have a sidewalk down that entire road that could meet Washington Street, where I started another sidewalk 20 years ago when I built the other building.
Will the 2 buildings share Leo Kidd's entrance?
Yes.
You were gonna put a fence on Sunglow, I thought, down your property. Are you still gonna do that?
I would like to fence it in.
And it wasn't, was it gonna be a regular, I thought I remember wasn't gonna be just a chain link, it was gonna be.
Decorative chain link was what we were
Yeah.
considering.
Okay.
Right now, at my other place, I have a wood fence, 6-foot wood fence, and it's been there, 60% of it's been there 19 years now, and it's held up well.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you, John. Mr. Grant, you have written down you'd like to speak.
I wrote them in just in case, because they weren't here yet, so
Okay.
if they do or they do not, that's fine.
Ron, you,
I think he's pretty much covered it.
Okay.
We're just trying to,
please approach the podium if you're going to speak, so you'll be on the record. Thank you.
Ron St. Martin, 5629 Lorenzen Road. Just trying to condense it down to more usable for you guys, the neighborhood, and keep the aesthetics, what's majority around it towards the east side that way. That road is a busy road. I live on Lorenzen Road. That road and Pine Hills are cut through, to come down Lorenzen Road to hit Grand, to hit that light. So that road is used a lot. I'll tell you what, the Bellman's the busiest one on there. But we need the second entrance, and it's not an everyday entrance, because because he has a lot of classic cars, more than likely what's gonna be in there, Mr. Grant. But we do have to get in and out, and we do have to appease the fire department, because you can't just come in there one way or another, be a Knox box on it, whatever, you know, get them in and out, whatever, you know, should emergency arise. But we do need that extra entrance, and we will keep it more to the east, so that we're not farther down the road towards the residential, even though they're apartments, but that's not it.
Okay, thank you.
Trying to make good use of money, what's more of tax roll.
The other thing that I remember from last year, noise was a concern, and we had talked about making.
It's 8 to 5. We're 8
Okay.
to 5 Monday through Friday. Very rarely are we there on a Saturday. If we are, we're out of there by noon. And we're loading up in the morning and leaving, and then we're back at the end of the day. So we're, other than my office staff there, the place is barren during the day.
Okay. I know that was a concern
I
last
mean,
time.
And you're welcome to, it's not gonna be any different than what you see right now for the last, all these years that I've been there. So, if you see what we do now, and go by at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then at 9, everybody's gone, and it's a ghost town, just the ladies in the office. So it's not like thinking, we've got 11 trucks and only 9 are running right now. So, compared to some of the other stuff that's right there, cut through, we're minimal.
Thank you.
Pat Rogers would like to speak.
Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard. Primarily, because I drive down that road quite often too, I've been a resident since 1965. You know, I've seen children playing in the road. I've also had to stop still to wait for a whole flock of ducks to cross the road, you know. And it's narrow. I mean, if you've got anything bigger, and I drive a full-size truck, even 2 trucks passing each other, it's narrow. But my biggest question is really to the property owners, and it's, why would you buy a property that's not zoned for what you want without making sure you can do it before you bought it?
You want to answer that? You have to do it at the podium, so you can't put it on the record.
The property's been sitting there since day one, since the city's been around. And, it's been shot down, one other time, it was many, many years ago. But since then, when you look at the stuff that's around it, and I did have conversations at the time when I came into City Hall, and I was highly encouraged on the fact that it could be done. And I still think it can be done, and I still think it's a good idea. The price was right, to buy commercial already done, is not. I mean, so, we've made the investment and we're moving forward. It's not one.
Thank you. Mr. Colombo?
Bill Colombo, 7810 Chestnut Street. Yeah, we've had a lot of stuff go on in that neck of the city. The east side of the city is a bit of a mixed-use mess, and it has been for a long time. And if you look at the future land use map, it's a bit of a Swiss cheese affair, because we have, over the years, done exactly this. We've taken a piece of residential, we zoned it commercial, and then afterwards, we changed the future land use map to match what we just did in the past. You know, last time it came before me when I was on council, I was like, we really ought to look at the future land use of that area and decide, should Sunglow be residential or should it be commercial? But right now, it's residential. And I'm always against spot zoning. That has caused many problems in our city where we have commercial entities in residential areas. So generally, I'm always against something. No offense to your businesses, this is very good business. I know you've been a resident and you've been a good business in this city for a long time. I'm speaking just from a land use point of view. I am always against spot zoning. If people want to look at the east side and future land use, you know, design it, I'd be all for, you know, sitting down and doing that. Mr. Foss, I believe in our code, and I don't believe, I'm pretty darn sure, in our code there are very specific buffering requirements when a commercial property direct. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Just for the record, these are witnesses presenting evidence. They don't get to cross-examine.
Okay, well, I was just.
Okay, so you can direct everything to Mr. Poole.
Okay, I'm sorry, that is absolutely correct, Mr. Poole. As far as I know, in our city code, there are very specific buffering requirements when a commercial property directly abuts a residential, as both from a visual and a sound standpoint.
Right.
So I would just like to insert that there. So
Okay.
that's pretty much it. Thank you all very much.
Any more questions? Sure, absolutely.
I just like the word spot zoning, because if you read the definition, it does not qualify for this. Spot zoning, I do not want to hear that word. I heard it last time at the council meeting. Bill Muse, who's no longer here, did not have qualifications to throw that word around the last time. I don't want to hear that word. If we're going to hear that word, then we're going to have problems. So you need to define it, discuss it, and then not use it at all, because it's not spot zoning. Read the definition and understand it.
Do we have a definition for spot zoning, Mr. Matthew?
If you, are you
read it
asking
10
me?
ways,
You
10
give me a
different
second.
ways.
Yeah, just so you understand, as you can see, it's one of the criteria, spot zoning is whether you don't want to create spots. Spot zoning is where you have an area that's, let's say, all residential, and then you were going to put a commercial right in the middle of it. So this property here is not spot zoning because it's, 50% of it's covered. What would that be? The north side and the east side
It's more
are
than
commercial.
50%.
Yeah, well, then whatever the
I
number.
implore
If
you,
I get to finish my explanation, Mr. St. John. So this, this is not spot zoning. This is,
Okay.
I'm not trying to take the applicant's side or anything, but this is not spot zoning, far from it, at least 50%. Spot zoning is where you put something in the middle of something, and if you stood back, you'd see the spot. Okay, that's why it's
Absolutely.
called spot zoning, yeah.
I thought necessarily we addressed that.
No, thank you. And that's why I don't want to hear that word brought up at all. And the other thing is I just ask all of you, before you leave tonight, or if you have time to get to, go into his office, look at the land use, flip it up, and then see the coloring for the zoning, and look what's around it. If you want to consider anything that's minuscule in that whole area, is the 20 or 30 parcels, it's actually residential. There's 90% commercial around this, and maybe 10% residential, and it's in the middle of that street. So I implore you to look at it and see it for yourself, okay?
Okay. Tom, any other questions?
Are we gonna vote on approval or disapproval?
We're not there yet. We're just making sure. We're not there yet. We're making sure there's no other questions or
Okay,
concerns.
I was just wondering if we're getting to that.
No. I have a question.
Fantastic.
Spot zoning aside, you are asking that we take a residential properties and convert them to commercial. Our land use map does indicate this being residential. Maybe that's where the problem lies, is where our land use map is, but it is currently our land use map, if I understand it correctly, that this is slated to be residential. I understand about the property facing Leo Kidd. Obviously, it's surrounded by commercial. I can see that. I'm very well can see that. But I also noticed driving by the property that the property's already been cleared. It looks like you're getting ready. So I have an issue with, and a business building up directly across the street from residential properties. These are not apartments, they're duplexes. That there is a significant difference between the two. I do a lot of work in Tampa, and I'm aware of the differences between apartment and use and development versus a duplex. So I've been on that road. I have seen children. I don't frequent the road because it's not my pattern of traffic, but every time I've been on that road, I have seen a child at some point on the road. Or not in the road, but on the, face of the property. So I guess my issue is gonna come down to, we have a land use map, future land use map for a reason, and the rules, if I understand it right, state that we are to try to follow that land use map without deviating drastically from it. R2 to C3 is a drastic deviation. So that's, pardon me?
do you care to
Yeah.
address that?
It's not drastic, if you ask me. In my opinion, it's not drastic because you got Duke Energy straight across the street. It's already commercial, and everything behind it, with the metal building's already behind it. Everything across the street is industrial or commercial next to it. There's less residential than there is commercial, so to call it drastic, I would have to disagree 100%. Maybe, does it fall into the change of the, sure, that's why we're here. That's why we're discussing it. That's what we're, the whole point of this and the meeting and we're, I'm going through the proper chains. I'm spending the money. I'm trying to, spend $1,000 for the rezoning. I'm doing all this for that reason, because I want to do it right and move forward with this and build something nice and then have something nice. It's just gonna sit there vacant, guys. It's, you gotta decide. I mean, you've got the land here in the city and you've gotta decide, do we want it to sit there and do absolutely nothing, or do we, what do we wanna do with it? Nobody was beating down the doors to build apartments there, guys, and I don't see anybody gonna be beating down the doors to build apartments there in the future. You've got it zoned for R2, but look at the area. Nobody's gonna be beating down the doors to build apartments on that property. Nobody. They would've already done it. Just look at the land grabs and what's been going on, and when all those people were snatching things up, nobody was running down the street grabbing that piece of property. So this is an opportunity, and I think it's a good opportunity. And I think it matches just what's behind it, just what's next to it, just what's surrounding. As far as buffering, we have no problem. No problem. Sidewalks, beautification, plants, fences, whatever you guys want. All right? I mean, we will comply. Okay?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions, but I have some statements.
Okay.
Here are my reasons for approving this, and I've got a list.
Okay.
We're gonna add to the revenue of the city. We have a longtime resident and business owner. We have someone who is willing to make changes to help to accommodate the city. We're Leo Kidd, C3, all the way down the street. We have children playing in the street, when if you look at those duplexes behind them, there's a ton of yard back there. Why are children playing in the street, number one? But number two, are we open for business, or are we going to be a bedroom community? Decide that, and that gives you your answer. I'm done. Thank you.
Tom, any other statements or concerns?
I think RJ's plan is a good thing for the city.
Bob, any other statements or concerns?
Hate being the main naysayer, but what he's got now and what could occur are drastically different. C3 will allow a lot different uses than what he plans. If we could lock this down to only his type of use, with a storage building and a heat and air business, that's one thing. But once you rezone it, you're pretty well locked into whatever that rezoning allows. And that opens the door to making this a lot more than what they're describing today. So it's not today's description that bothers me, it's the potential of what our zoning allows. Now, if we could put some caveats on that or some conditions for approval, he's already mentioned several that make sense. We could, that would ride and go with the land. That's good, but still, would a lesser commercial zoning have applied here? Would a lesser commercial zoning have served the purpose he's attempting to do? And, I guess that's where it goes down to. R2, and I do have a question for staff, Mr. Attorney.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Staff, R2, is it multifamily, or what is the definition of R2? Or what's the allowable use in R2?
It is multi.
If you look on page 60 in your packet, I provided R2, which is the current zoning. And single-family, multifamily, community residential home, essential services establishment, park or playground,
Pardon me, but I do not see multifamily in R2.
two-family dwelling, I apologize, a duplex.
Correct. So, you know, apartments have been mentioned, but apartments are not part of the R2 at all.
That's correct. That would be under the R3 zoning.
Correct.
In the, Mr. Breedlove, the next page on 62, bottom right-hand corner, so if you approve this, those are all the uses allowed in C3 unless you limit it in some fashion. Those are all the uses there.
Right, and this is what concerns me.
I understand, I was just.
The C3 zoning is wide open from a commercial standpoint. It's not industrial, but it's the heaviest commercial use. And would not this use be equally as appropriate in a C1?
Just for a legal clarification, if you grant the zoning per the application, the property zone C3, doesn't make
I
a difference.
understand that. We can't change
Yeah,
the
well, no,
parameter.
you can. I mean,
My
that's why-
question is the appropriateness of this zoning
Yes,
to
that's
this
an
use.
issue for the board, yeah, whether, if you feel he should apply for C4 and C2 or whatever it is, yes. I'm just trying to clarify the application is to be able to do anything in C3.
I understand that.
Yeah, and so, well, I've heard it's inconsequential what the applicant is doing now. It's inconsequential whether he's gonna move. He doesn't have to if you pass this or
Right.
not pass it. Okay, and he could sell this the day after you rezone this, okay?
I understand that.
So, and for the other board members from the comments, Mr. Breedlove, I sense you do. So, that's what's before you, and if you wanna limit it with provisos or conditions, you can make that a part of your motion, whoever, if somebody is going that way, so.
The proviso conditions would survive the change of hands?
Yes, yeah, that's, I'm leading up to that point. That's exactly right. It's done by ordinance that way because it's filed against the property.
Okay,
Correct.
that's
And-
my point.
Yeah, that's what I was
is,
trying to bring out, right.
And the point I'm trying to get out, I don't know, and, you know, C3 is general commercial district, but at C3, there's C1 and C2 that is less industrialized. I guess that would be, I guess that's a question I probably should throw at Mr. RJR2 is,
Bob, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Claudia.
Last year, we did number 5. We put that little caveat where they couldn't work like outside and build things and noise. So I don't know if that is something you might be looking for, or,
No, Claudia, I'm aware of last year. I've got the
Okay.
notes right here
Okay.
and read them before I came and
Okay.
been studying on them. My point is, are we in the right arena? Are we in the right area asking for C3, going from a duplex, maximum density of a duplex to C3? That's my dilemma here. As Pat Rogers pointed out and others have said, we have a future land use map. If we're gonna change it, we need to change the future land use map to avoid this type of scenario in the future. But right now, R2 is the future land use map for that area. I live on a road that is trying to transition, but it's not going to. But we have a lot of traffic heading to the 1 or 2 businesses on that road. And I know the disruption that gives the residents living on the road. That's why I'm pointing this out. So that's what I wanted to bring out, make sure I stated, as passionately as Claudia feels her way, I feel my way.
That being said, can I ask a question of staff as well? So apparently, according to the zoning I have in front of me for C3, they're looking to utilize number 22, which says warehousing and general storage establishment, in addition to Mr. St. Martin's AC business. Is C3 the only commercial, for the board's benefit, zoning that qualifies that usage?
For that permitted use, yes.
So that is the solid answer is C3 is what they need to be able to get them what they have to have done.
We tried to look at a special exception try, and stay within the zoning to keep it residential, but what he's wanting to do, it has to go to C3.
C1 or C2 would not cut it.
C2 is waterfront and C1 is office and.
Gotcha.
That's why I wanted to get to the crux of the matter. Are we giving him, is he asking for what he needs? You've already addressed it,
That's
you've already
correct.
looked at it.
We
Okay,
did.
great. All right. I have no questions for anyone. I do have a question for the attorney. Out of fairness to the city of Port Richey as well as to the applicant, I need to understand, Mr. Grant has been a client of mine in the past for real estate, so does that recuse me from having to vote today? I don't want anything to come across there so they can come back later on and mess up their vote, whether no matter how it goes.
What was the relationship, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Grant bought a home that I represented him as the buyer,
previously?
a couple of years ago.
And nothing else?
No.
Doesn't seem it to me, but that's your decision, just so you know, it's an ethical consideration. If you decided not to, if you feel you can't make an independent, impartial decision, you shouldn't vote, but if you feel you can.
That's not an issue, I just want to make sure that it's fair to the city as well as for the applicant.
The answer is, you don't have a contractual relationship with him now. The fact that you've had one in the past but don't gain any financial benefit from it now doesn't technically preclude you, but the choice is always yours in light of if you feel you couldn't give an impartial one. If you did decide you didn't want to vote, you'd have to abstain from the vote and prepare a voting slip, but the short answer to your question is, technically, it doesn't preclude you in any way unless you feel you can't make an impartial decision, so it's always yours.
All right. Thank you for the clarification. All right, I'll entertain any motions or more discussion or questions. Does the applicant have any other further things he'd like to say on his behalf? Staff is satisfied. Board has any other questions? Everybody's happy?
I'm happy. I'm ready to make a motion.
Can I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve with provisions.
Okay.
I will second
Well, we have
that.
to get the provisions.
I haven't stated the provisions yet.
Oh,
Okay.
I understand your dilemma. Staff has answered my questions. They have pointed out to me that C3 is appropriate. I had a misunderstanding there, but that's okay. My provision is, as you've asked, or as you stated, that you provide sidewalk, provide a screening fence, and a gated drive, but that both buildings primarily use Leo
Right,
Kid.
because you could do sidewalk. What were they? I'm sorry.
Sidewalks,
Fencing.
screened fencing.
Opaque
A
fencing,
buffer.
so you can't see through?
I prefer wood. I have a wood fence I really like at my house. I like the privacy it offers.
It's your motion, you could make it as strict.
I'd like for it to be as screened as wood or as dense as I don't want it to be opaque. I don't want to look through it.
Okay.
So screened fence,
A screened fence?
well, no, screened area,
Just how about not, okay, screening, so you can't.
it's a blockage. Let's get some division
He
between,
could give you the language. Generally, that's an opaque fence, something you can't see through.
Typically, what you have is, there is a requirement for commercial abutting against residential property.
right.
By code, I believe it's in the zoning code also.
But that applies
It
to
can-
the perimeter. What about to the
Perimeter.
frontage?
Frontage and all, we can have it come across the front also, which is one of the things I had brought up when we were discussing it. It can go up to an 8-foot high block wall between the use, residential to commercial.
But it doesn't have to.
Doesn't have to be block wall, but it can
Yeah,
go up to that. It can be a wooden wall, but it has to be a solid buffer.
I don't want to make it
Most
look
of-
like a prison.
Most of what you're requiring in your motion of is also gonna come underneath when they bring in their design, to
Well-
meet the design criteria.
I would like to see such design. I would have liked to have seen a better design tonight so we'd feel more comfortable with what you're proposing. I understand, I'm in the business, I know what it takes to provide one of these.
Well,
Trust me, I know.
can you imagine if we spend $6,000 and we get it shot down?
I wouldn't want that either. A year ago, you brought in something a little bit better than this, but I do want to make assurances that on the corner, you're visible on two sides. But as you reach back this other property, you reach back into this other area, that we screen and try to protect the view in both directions, from them and to them. I don't want you having to look at them, I want them having to look at you. The fenced emergency egress, if we can make it that, where it's not a daily use,
He asked for a gated
gated,
entrance.
gated,
Jim's
key.
trying to write it
That
all
would
down.
be on the south entrance to
On the
Sunglow?
south entrance on Sunglow, that's
Yes,
correct.
and that it
And
be as
that's-
far,
That's emergency gated.
right.
I didn't mean to keep interrupting you, I'm just trying
He
to.
has it listed as gated, not,
Seldom use, let's not call it seldom use, not everyday use, but that's seldom use, let's not call it emergency, because we're gonna have to use it, we're gonna have to have emergency anyway.
I understand that, and I get that, but the next person down, excuse me, so the next person down the road may see seldom use as a different type of usage. I'm sorry, I have to try to make this to where I feel comfortable that whoever comes down after you is not gonna turn this into more than we want.
Well, he's in the middle of the making
He's
of the
making a
motion.
motion,
And once
so-
the motion's made, there'll be a chance for statements.
sure, absolutely.
Okay. I'm just trying to get him so we can write it
So the
down.
motion is that we have some separation between the commercial and the residential in the
Yes.
form of fencing, buffering, sidewalks, and gated entrance.
When you say buffering, 2 feet, 5 feet, 7 feet, you know.
For the code?
See, what happens is, once this is passed, and it says, if we just say buffering.
We need to define that. I understand that, and I think it
And
is,
sidewalks on the south and the east side?
Don't do the east, that's all drainage.
So per the code is the correct answer, correct?
Sidewalks per code?
So
Okay.
sidewalks and fencing per code, whatever the setback requirements are
Okay,
currently.
then opaque
Okay.
fence south and east, right?
south and west.
South and west. over to
Correct.
the- Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, okay, I didn't follow that.
West. That's the residential
I
also.
understand what, yeah. Okay, and the gate.
Okay, and they do need to connect between the two properties so that the back building can use Leo Kidd as its primary entrance.
Do you wanna make it?
We're not fencing out the front.
Yeah, I guess.
No. Just the two sides, right.
In other words, these are two separate parcels, and the day after you do this, you could sell off one of the parcels, not that you're intending to do that. You understand what I mean? Someone wants to come in and put a fence there on the edge of their property, it becomes problematic. If you wanna make this, that there's a forced easement across one parcel to the other, that's a major issue. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying.
Okay,
which
but
is
you
why
can
I'm
do it.
raising-
I don't want to think you can't do it.
What,
You could make the primary access for these two parcels on Leo Kidd. You can do that. Because it becomes an ordinance, and that'll affect the property forever, so that may be what you want to do.
that's what I'm after.
Okay. That's what, make sure.
I really don't know why this is coming as two separate properties, why they're not combined as one.
We'd have to question it.
It's just my concerns.
Yeah. that-
If they want to abut that or rebut that,
okay,
they're
So
welcome to
you
do
want,
so.
you want the access to both
Primary
parcels
access for
from-
both properties on Leo Kidd. Secondary,
Understood.
emergency access on Sunglow, as far east as possible. Now, on the sketch, as far east would take it beyond the property boundary for the second parcel. The first parcel reaches real deep.
Staff is shaking its head no.
Is this correct?
The issue is you cannot landlock, you can't, where it's two separate parcels, I can't put a driveway from parcel 2 on property 1. It can go to the property line and end, unless you unify both properties.
So that's why they have to have a
That's why
secondary
they have to have a
egress.
secondary
Which is
entry
fine.
and exit, is that
Right.
reason.
Right.
The other reason behind that is the width of the property will not allow for the emergency vehicle, for fire truck to turn on that. That's why the the emergency egress, as it was called, was put there to get the fire department in or out, or
So,
police, whomever.
to clarify, this is a zoning request. Any, design work, engineering work, and everything else
Right, that'll
has
do
to
that.
come
That's
back
separate.
anyway
It's a separate
to
issue.
staff. They have to address that issue later. They have to verify they can build the code. This is it's okay. All right, thanks.
Right, exactly.
All right,
But he's still in his motion.
That was a
still in his
rambling, that's kind of a rambling motion, so we need to,
No, we got it.
Did we get it?
Run the resolution, the motion after you vote on it,
Sure.
we're gonna prepare a resolution, have you sign it later, it's inherent in this.
Now, does the applicant have the ability
The
to address that,
applicant-
the
Yeah,
motion?
well, you get a second on the
After we get a
motion.
second.
Okay, after you get a second?
We're not-
Until I rebut that.
Okay.
You haven't got a second.
He has to
so-
get a second. Do we have a second?
I make a motion, second motion to approve with the caveats.
You can't modify
Oh.
his motion.
Oh, okay, then I make a second motion.
Okay, so I have a second.
Yeah, and now it's appropriate to bring the applicant up.
Okay.
Because
Fantastic.
if he says, look, I won't do one of those provisos, which he has a right to say, well, then you could pass the motion, he could withdraw his application, you understand me, or you could amend your motion.
Okay.
Okay?
John?
I'll agree to the sidewalks, the buffering of the fence, not just the emergency fence, because it is like he spoke, two parcels. You're going to have an entrance in and out on the second parcel if it ever does get sold. We can't landlock it like he's saying. So it cannot be called an emergency entrance. It needs to be an entrance for the second parcel. Okay? So I'm not gonna agree to that. I would defer to agree to the sidewalk and the fencing and the buffering. And I would say yes to that, and then I would leave it to the rest of the council to vote on that. And to skip this part about the entrance being all the way up and some of the things he's saying. So I'm agreeing to sidewalks, buffering on the properties, and the fencing.
Okay. So the one he doesn't want is the
The one that-
primary access being off of Leo Kidd.
No,
I-
primary access is gonna be off Leo Kidd.
Okay,
We
so-
have to have-
but he has to have a
it cannot be
secondary
called-
egress.
It cannot go into the record as saying it's a non-daily use entrance. It
So
cannot,
there's a
because
problem.
you've got a second parcel
That
that
means
has
it's
to
gonna be
have
down
an
here.
entrance in and out. It has to.
All the way down here is where the second,
You
it
can't
needs to have
landlock it,
people
you
his.
can't put something in
He's
there,
the one that
and
offered
then
it
you
here.
devalued it. We have no intentions of selling it,
He
but
walked up
you
there
can't
and offered
devalue
this,
it.
now
You can't
he's-
take the value of the property away. I feel like she listed some great things there. I feel like, I think we were on the right page. I'm getting a vibe where we've only got one dissenting anyway, so I'm agreeing to the sidewalks, I'm agreeing to the fencing,
Is he
I'm agreeing to the
running
buffering. We need an entrance, we have to have an entrance on the second parcel.
Can I ask a question to the attorney, please?
And one more thing about the sidewalks.
Sure.
I don't have a problem with the sidewalks, but where are they gonna go?
Where they go?
So I'm gonna
That'll be a
build,
design phase.
They can address with staff during the design phase.
Design phase.
I can agree to the sidewalks
That's his
It'll be on your property.
Right.
on my
On your
property,
properties would be, that would be it.
but then there's sidewalks nowhere basically, is what we're talking
Correct.
about.
On the-
Unless you plan on future.
Not on Leo Kidd, I'm agreeing to
No,
sidewalks
Sunglow.
On Sunglow, correct.
That's, if you see the ditch in Leo Kidd, there is no sidewalks, there's no point in the sidewalk.
I need to
I'm agreeing
address
to
that.
Sidewalk
Right.
on Sunglow for the residential purpose, and I would hope that the city, doesn't let it just sit there and let it go nowhere, that it goes the rest of the way.
Sure.
Because that street could use a sidewalk, that would address the very thing that you guys are talking about, traffic, and people going up and down the road and the narrowness of the road that she spoke of. That would fix a lot of things, but if it's just sitting there doing nothing, then I got a problem. So agreeing to the buffering, agreeing to the fencing, and agreeing to the sidewalks on Sunglow. And we have to have an entrance, and I don't mind putting it as far east as possible to that corner of the parcel, I have no problem with that. But it has to have its own entrance, and it cannot be solely an emergency entrance, because if it does get sold in the future, it does need. And that is not our plan, but guys, we have to talk about value and property and resale. And, anybody in here that's a realtor knows that you have to have resale value, so it has to be considered.
Throw us realtors on there. Okay,
So I would say if that's gonna be the case, I say motion on that, please, and, see if you can work with that.
Bob, it's your motion.
It is my motion, and my motion was crafted from his initial comments in making offerings of moving the driveway, of offering a sidewalk down Sunglow so that the city could build on it. I don't understand his comments now that we're asking for something that he's, doesn't see.
The driveway.
So he's saying he would move the driveway as far east as possible
On that
per,
parcel.
on that parcel.
Which
per
only
whatever
puts
building.
it, and it puts it down almost the entire width of the property. Majority of the property, parcel one, is majority of this property. So,
How wide is this?
So let's be clear, That is not, I have to go back to the county to revise that, because if you look at it now, it's not 50-50. It's 3 lots versus 3, but the other 2 are much bigger. I think it's 4 lots and 2. There's another 40 feet that's going to the east, to the west, I'm sorry, to the west. The line has to be moved. When it was done at the county, it was done wrong, and I have to go back and present it to them. So, do you have is the one showing 60, 60, 60, do you have that one in there? I mean,
I don't believe the
didn't
widths are
get
shown.
it, so.
I have parcel 12 showing 3 lots and
Do
parcels.
they show the distance
No.
between?
No.
Okay, so.
That's
we
that
don't
you
have-
need to
We should
submit.
have that in there.
If
There's
you-
7 lots originally.
I
There's
don't
60, the 3 are 60, 60, 60, that's 180.
It wasn't
Okay.
in last year's.
Another 40 foot is going to that, it's gonna be 220, so at the far end of that is 220. We could split what I would like to see is a split driveway where it can be shared to both parcels.
What is our building, does our building allow that?
It would give us, like say we
You-
fenced it down the future in the middle of both, it would give an entrance, a gated entrance to both. Why?
There'd be had to be an easement or something on those lines drawn up between the 2 property owners to do that, if I'm not mistaken. We can't jump both lines.
So we could draw an easement ourselves as the property
As
owners.
property owners, you could grant an easement right away.
That's what I'd like to see.
So that would
Just,
ta-
guys, I just, keep in mind, it has to be worth something later when you go to sell it.
Right.
You can't landlock it like you're saying, or
Same-
give no entrance in or out.
Likewise, if you make a single ingress and egress off of Leo Kidd, we still gotta get an easement for the second piece parcel.
course.
To access
So
that second
one
parcel. So
driveway off of
either way,
Sunglow
we-
would do both.
Right, so then there wouldn't, just so I understand, so there wouldn't be, just in case they agree to this, there wouldn't be an entrance on Leo Kidd?
Yes,
No,
that's
both.
definitely-
Oh.
That also,
There'd be
so
an entrance.
be a main, but we keep saying main and that.
So the primary entrance will be from Leo Kidd.
There's,
What he's
there's no
suggesting-
legal, there's no legal significance to
And from the
primary
word
entrance. I
primary,
just want,
exactly.
for the purposes of the condition, okay, we can't enforce primary and
So the-
secondary.
He's suggesting that the
Yeah.
entrance off of Sunglow would be a limited use gated entrance, correct?
Well, if you're gonna get to that, then you,
All right, but let me, all right.
Okay.
If I hear you correctly, sir, you stated that parcel, 12 parcel, will be 220 feet wide. And of that 220 foot, would you have a reason to object to 200 feet of it being non-accessible from Sunglow?
So he's saying
Does
from
that
the,
give me 20 foot?
Gives you 20 foot on each side.
Shared access, that'd be no problem.
Yeah.
So if I revise my motion
Divide the line
to state
between the 2.
that you'll leave 200 foot on Sunglow as a no-access strip
Sure.
from the west.
from the west.
We don't have the numbers in front of us.
From the west, from the west going east, 200 foot, no entrance.
You're okay with that?
Listening?
That's when we have enough to, time we split the 2, but I mean,
You can,
or
if-
something
20,
close.
so
It'd
that-
be something close, it'd be 150, 200.
you're gonna be-
150 and 200 is 50 foot
By the time we
difference.
divide- it was originally 7 lots, by the time we take all those and turn it into 2, I don't remember what the numbers were.
I believe he stated there were 60, 60, 60.
He's got 180 now, and he needed more back, because I put the line in the wrong spot. I'm sorry, guys. So, if I give him 40 foot of that next
understand where I'm getting at?
Absolutely.
of that six,
I see exactly what you're talking about. If you make this, so you can't
He can't access the first,
utilize
that
this
200
piece to
foot
here,
strip. Right.
you can only use this one?
But he can use here, here.
Right, absolutely.
He can't use. He can
He
only
can
use.
make a shared driveway right here.
Right.
And he can create the easement,
Right.
which is perfect, because that just,
All right,
that
so
sets a.
we decided, so it's 200 from the first duplex, from our property line to the west, provided that it is 200, once we get it to 220 feet.
From the west
Last 20
heading to the east,
That is
200
correct.
feet.
So 20 foot on that parcel,
Right. That gives you legal access.
yes, and then I would need another 20 foot from the.
Well,
other
you,
parcel.
you can make that, the width be,
It's with you.
but you would need to execute easements to make it, you would have to
I
execute.
don't think so.
No, just be sure.
I'm not sure I'm following.
In order to have a shared driveway,
They're between parcels 12 and 16.
It's not a shared.
Hold on a second, just for the record, you gotta stop this.
Sure, okay, so,
People are talking at the same time, and
So I'm gonna put
Just
it on.
for a record, there's a record here, and so.
It's gonna be a little convoluted trying to figure it out later. So the
Sure.
record which he's stating is from between parcels 12 and 16. Once they absolutely, once they redefine the line,
Hold on a second here, okay, 12 and 16, right.
so the drawing that is here is incorrect,
Yeah, I realize that.
okay? It's approximately where the first line heading from the east, or from, heading to the east on 16 is.
Yeah, next lot line.
Correct, the next plat line.
That's where
So-
it's gonna be and split them 50/50.
Correct. He is stating that he's willing to give 200 feet from the corner of parcel 12 on
From the
Sunglow.
corner of parcel 12.
The east corner, the eastmost corner.
Southeast corner? Okay.
Yep, southeast corner. 200 feet heading due, southwest corner, heading due east
Right. What-
as a buffer,
As a buffer.
No
as
access.
a no access,
Okay, so from the southwest corner going east.
200 feet.
Whatever this driveway entrance is gonna be, it won't be within that 200
An
feet.
easier way to do that would be if the property even stayed the same, is the last 20 foot of that parcel is the only allowed entrance.
It's fine either way, I don't care how you
Don't
put
that
it.
sound a little better?
Well, it doesn't,
Not really, because the parcel's not defined.
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
The parcel is undefined at this point. I think
Yeah,
we're lacking key information. I'm trying to work with you, but I just don't have the key information, as he's pointed out.
The driveway for the west parcel would not be allowed to be anywhere except for the last 20 foot of the western, the entrance would have to be the last 20 foot of that parcel, no matter what that parcel distance is. He wants to clarify. But it isn't. Doesn't-
Let me
doesn't
clarify.
matter
Let me
Whether it's
take a minute to look at
180
the
that it is
deeds.
now, or whether it's 220 later, you see what I'm saying? The last 20 foot to the east is the designated driveway period of that parcel. You follow me?
absolutely.
So that's the southeast
That
corner
would be
there,
the
you're
easiest
looking
way
at
to
the
word
last
it,
20 feet
because
there.
if you're
But you're gonna make it bigger anyway, but you're gonna put it in there.
That last 20 foot of, to the east would be the drive, to the entrance.
So he wants the last, whatever the southwest corner, the southeast corner is, he wants
Well,
20
I'm
feet.
addressing what he wanted.
Sure.
He wants it as far east as possible, so on that parcel, it has to have a driveway, it has to have one.
Yes, Dallas.
Veronica just pulled the dimensions.
Yes.
The total length along Sunglow is 409 feet.
Yeah, but what's the
So
parcel
first,
difference?
you're starting at lot 12,
Okay, so
it's
then-
parcel 12, starting on the west end. You got a 60-foot lot, a 60-foot lot, you got 5 60-foot lots this way.
Where is the current
No, I'm
parcel
saying
break?
Going all the way up the property line.
Where is the current parcel break?
Between 12 and 16, how many
12
feet
and
is that?
16, 180 feet.
180 feet.
180 feet.
At
from
this,
the
but
left.
the way it's drawn on your
That's what
display.
the current marker is now. That line you're seeing is at 180 feet.
They're gonna move that current line.
Well, if she's right,
Further
which I
east.
don't think she is, it's more footage than what she's saying.
I'm saying,
That's
but
what property appraiser's
property appraiser
showing.
got the lot dimensions, that's what she just pulled.
That's what property appraiser's showing, but a survey's gonna tell us exactly
Yeah,
what
so
the
that's why
dimensions are.
The easiest thing to do is to show the last 20 foot to that
Yeah.
parcel's east
That-
is the
that-
entrance.
You can modify your motion as well, based off of discovery. Correct?
I guess, yeah, if I understand, and I'm the one that's gotta write this.
Right.
I would like
I know.
to dial this down just a minute and just take a
ahead,
break
sir.
for just long for me to get some facts in front of me. I want to see the deed, and we have a package of deeds here. I need to find the 2 deeds that apply to this properties. I want that much time to look this over, 10 minutes.
That's it, Chairman, that's,
Okay, do I have a motion to,
you can just call it, I'll take
you want
a
to just
break.
call an adjournment? All right, we're going to take a
Eh,
10-minute break. It is now 7:50. Thanks, guys.
It's page 17.
This is 60
I don't understand why.
60 foot, 60.
I understand
This is
that.
such a-
Where is the parcel
Why is it
break?
not clarified?
He's gonna move the
Why is
parcel
this
break.
8 o'clock again, so we were back from the break. We were discussing Mr. Breedlove's motion. Okay, and you actually were discussing your motion.
Right. At this point, we have a piece of property that's 180 feet wide, and another piece of property that's 289. They've made the statement that they're gonna make changes, that they're gonna change property lines, and that they need these changes to give both buildings adequate room. I'm gonna rescind my motion, and if appropriate, put forth a motion to table this until the next meeting that we have scheduled, or we're trying to schedule for November. Give them time to get the facts
Hold on.
together.
The
All
attorneys.
right, it's been seconded, it's now on the table, so
Okay.
you don't have the ability to rescind it
Ah.
or table it. You can, you wanna make a motion to withdraw it or whatever, but you don't have that power. It's your motion, but no longer, it's now the board's
Okay.
motion.
Okay?
So would you like
So
to?
it's out there, so the board can discuss it further, and somebody else make a motion, and somebody else can have a motion to table or whatever. When you say table, then it's just off the table, it's just.
So does he need to make a physical motion to remove his motion? If that's what he
Anybody can
wants
do
to do,
that.
or
He could,
modify
yeah.
what he's saying,
Yeah.
to
If
modify?
He could modify it, yeah, sure.
Okay, so you need to make a motion to
Do you wanna
modify.
modify the motion? Amend the motion? What are you trying to
What it boils
accomplish?
down to is
Yeah,
we're
go ahead.
voting on future events
Right.
that have not happened.
Correct, yes. If this was gonna, yeah, that's right. In other words,
And I find that troubling,
got it.
and that there's a property line in the future he says is gonna move. We have no documentation to that move, we have no deeds for that move, we have no agreement to that move, we just have a statement of the move. So as it has evolved, I am become troubled again that we don't really know what we're voting on.
Well, at this point in time, Mr. Poole, why don't you restate the motion that is presently on the table?
Okay.
And second it. I'll read the provisos if you want.
Perfect.
As I've heard them so far. And you have sidewalks on Sunglow. Okay? You have an opaque fence on the south and west side. You have access to the parcel will be, this one, will be 200 feet from the southwest corner of the parcel on the left, I guess, whatever is that, 16? Okay, and I'm not sure, he would have an automatic right to put in access on Leo Kidd, would he not? So that's not an issue for the zoning, right? Okay, so those are the three provisos.
So that's the motion we have is to approve based off those provisos. We have a second on
Right.
the table.
That's correct. That's how I'm hearing it.
All right.
So I'm just repeating it, so.
The applicant has stated that he will agree to some of those provisos. He does not want to agree to the 200-foot proviso. Correct?
No,
That's what he wants.
Oh, he will, okay.
He will agree to that, and that was the proviso that was before we broke, so.
Sure.
you know,
Okay,
whether-
all right.
Whether that is
Okay,
a proviso.
well, as long as that for 200 feet stands pat, then yeah.
Okay, so then he's comfortable with his motion still at that point then?
Okay, yeah, in
Okay.
other words, you understand the proviso, right?
Sure.
In other words, it's gonna be 200 feet coming towards
Sure.
the east, and even if he doesn't move or does move that line, which he always has a right to do, it'll still,
We can,
go ahead.
the other way you could do it would be that when that split's modified, the easternmost 20 feet of that lot, parcel 12, I believe it's called, which means the furthest on Sunglow would be the entry.
And if he doesn't do that before it gets passed, it'll be the way it is, the eastern,
Yeah,
Correct.
beyond 200
You can have a minimum of
feet.
200 feet. If he goes to a 240-foot lot, now you got 220, not 200.
If he goes to the 220-foot lot, it's fine, but if he does not, and we limit him to access, then he has a landlocked piece of
Right,
property,
he doesn't have an entrance if he doesn't.
and
do
he
it.
has a bona fide issue then that we,
you want that, that's what we're gonna get, that's.
Yeah, so he'll agree to the 200 feet. So he'll agree to your.
So you
Okay.
know, then I'm doing it.
So he'll agree to the stipulations of your motion. We have a second?
You
Is
did
there
have a second.
any
I
other-
thought
We had a
Claudia
second.
seconded
We have a
it,
second,
yes.
Claudia, second. Any other discussion? Tom,
Are we voting on rezoning?
we're getting there. We're trying to, we have a motion on the table to rezone, to agree to the rezoning based off of the three provisions that were presented. 200 feet from the from the
Yeah.
westmost corner, heading east, sidewalks
Yeah.
and on Sunglow only, and then fencing,
Right.
okay? And we have a first and a second, so. Any other discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right.
And,
So,
Karen, with
that being said,
motion,
before
you'll be
anybody
signing a
leaves-
resolution for that.
Before
okay?
anybody leaves, okay. The next part, I need to find out from the board, it would be the next part that we need to discuss regarding this is the amendment to the future land use map. And the suggested date now is November 20th at 6:30. Want to put it on everybody's radar?
I'm good.
Bob,
How many of you are gonna be away?
November 20th should be fine.
Thanksgiving?
November 20th is not Thanksgiving, it's
Yeah,
the next week.
It's next week, yeah. Okay, so that being said, let's just let the record show that that's the date we suggested for that. Do I have any other motions?
Is everybody available?
Motion to adjourn.
Yes. I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, everybody.
What time is 6:30?
6:30.